there's a client for everyone. Everyone's looking for slightly different things, or they're going to vibe with different people. And that's amazing.
This is the Sweno Creative Podcast. I'll be your host, professional photographer and video content creator, Brian Sweno. In this podcast, we will discuss all parts of business, marketing, mindset, creativity, and self-improvement. Sometimes with the help of a special guest to provide some incredible outside perspective. So, Jacy, who are you and what do you do?
That's a great question. I'm Jacy Overstreet. I live in Lebanon, Missouri. I'm married to Trey for 9.5 years. We met in college and we have a daughter, Marin. I have worked in communications and PR for the last 10 years, but I also do photography, which is the reason I'm here today.
You are one of my favorite photographers.
Thank you.
I have a couple of people job shadowing me right now. I show your work as examples to them a lot of like consistency in colors, consistency in a theme, posing, all that stuff. So I appreciate that a lot.
Thanks.
What got you interested in photography? Like what led you to pick up a camera in the first place?
Yeah, it's kind of a long story. It's not something I ever planned to do or thought I would do. I had a fashion blog many years ago, and I learned to use my camera through taking my own outfit photos for that. So when I first moved to Lebanon, people would probably think I was crazy driving by when I had my camera on my tripod all over our smaller town taking photos of my outfits. But that's how I first started using a camera and getting comfortable with it. From there, my best friend at the time was a huge wedding photographer, and she encouraged me to start second shooting for her so we could travel together and just basically have a way to spend more time together. So I started doing that with her, which was really fun. And then on the side, just started some senior photos and family photos. I truly viewed it as just a little side hustle to make a little bit extra money to travel and spend time with my best friend. From there, the next year, I booked like 3 weddings of my own without even really marketing that. It was just people who found me on social media and then one couple that I knew personally. And I discovered I really liked it. And then it's just grown organically from there over the last 5 or so years. Every year has been bigger and better, and my style has evolved. And yeah, I don't know. It's been a really interesting journey because it was never even an aspiration of mine. It's just organically happened. And I've discovered how much I love it and how much it fits my natural abilities.
Yeah. You mentioned your style there. If someone hasn't seen it, how would you describe it to them?
That's always such a hard question for me to answer. I would describe my style as very like soft, romantic, but still true to color. I want a modern yet timeless look, not something where you look at it and you can pick out what decade or what trend it was a part of. So that's always my goal. I like slightly more muted tones and just a really soft, dreamy image. I landed at that style. I really feel it's an extension of my personal style. I personally don't love bright colors and a lot of contrast. It just doesn't fit my personal aesthetic. So I think my photography style just is an extension of what I'm naturally drawn to.
How did you come about that style? Was it that from the start, or how has it kind of changed?
Yeah. When I first started, I just bought a preset pack from a photographer I liked. Looking back, it's not at all how I would want to edit now, but that's just part of the journey you have to learn. And any presets I've ever bought, none of them are perfect, but you can learn settings from looking at other people's presets. And that's been really helpful to me. When I first started, my colors were a lot more saturated and just a lot, I would say, trendier. They were fitting an aesthetic of a trendy photographer at the time. Yeah. And then over time, as I tweaked those presets and then tried other ones, I really, over time, just figured out what my eye was drawn to. And I do still use another photographer's presets, but it's very different from what I originally started with.
Yeah. Speaking of the blog that you had, are you still doing that? And if you are or are not, are there plans to continue that?
That's a great question. I do still have my blog. I haven't updated it in, I think, a couple of years, but I'm still keeping it live because I just have a lot of content on there that it's almost like an archive or an old diary in a way, as cheesy as that sounds. I do still do content creation, and I hate the word influencer, but some of that stuff on Instagram, not as much as I would like to be doing, but with my current workload, I'm just doing what I can and dabbling because I do really enjoy it. If more time becomes available in the future, I would love to start doing more of that again. I've done a lot of content creation for brands, and I honestly feel I can see my path going more that direction versus trying to do more of the influencing myself, because I think ties in with my love of photography, just creating beautiful imagery for whether it's me taking photos of a client or me creating content for a brand.
Did you learn anything through that process of like working with different brands or anything like that that you've carried on forward?
Something I've learned, it really stands out when a brand values who is doing work for them versus when they don't. You can tell even if it's just in email interactions. There are definitely brands that view you just as a commodity that they are purchasing, whereas there are people who view you as a person and value your unique take and what you can bring to that imagery that you're creating. And I love when brands want that input from you and want that authenticity. I think that leads to the best work. So I guess flipping that to something I would learn if I were on the brand side would be if I chose to work with someone, it's not just because I think they take cool pictures. It would be, what is something unique and authentic about this person that is drawing us to them as a brand? And how can we use those strengths and that uniqueness to create like next level content for us?
So you kind of touched on a little bit of how you got your start in weddings and by just people seeing your kind of word of mouth. How have you expanded your business from that? Or do you do like intentional marketing or like social media marketing? How are you finding your ideal clients now versus them just happening to see your stuff?
That's a great question. I honestly want to dedicate more of my time and resources to dedicated marketing moving forward. But I think the biggest thing for me is having a really consistent brand and aesthetic. And you touched on that earlier. That is a huge compliment to me because it's really important to me. I want someone to see my work and have a really good idea of who took that photo. So my branding, my editing, no matter the wedding, no matter the lighting situation, the time of year, is all really cohesive. And I'm finding as I have couples reaching out, they are coming to me for that look, feeling that, you know, they believe they can have that look. I've established that consistency and I have that experience now to where I can consistently deliver really high quality work. Yeah, most of my couples do find me through Instagram or word of mouth through someone who used me as a wedding photographer or someone who was a guest at a wedding. I've booked several couples through that. Like my friend was at a wedding you shot and you were so great to work with and so kind to everyone and calm. And then we saw the photos and they're amazing. So my friend told me all about you. And that's really encouraging to hear. But I think through Instagram and word of mouth, making good relationships with vendors and venues has been really valuable as well. I try to go above and beyond to tag vendors, whether it's a florist or the venue, wedding dress shops. And I find those vendors are always looking for content to post on their pages, and they will always give photo credit because they understand the importance of that. And so I've gotten a lot of clients through that. Like I saw you on Greenhouse Two Rivers Instagram page, and I have a ton of weddings there this year, and it's one of my favorite places to shoot. And same with word of mouth. There are some planners and videographers that I've built really good working relationships with, and we love working together. And anytime we do, we shout it from the rooftops on Instagram, in person. We're building each other up. We're saying how much we love working together, and clients love seeing that.
Yeah.
Because who doesn't want to feel like they have the most amazing team who are obsessed with each other and with you? You know, that's going to
And they can work together on their wedding day to make it seamless, rather than, you know, the videographer and the photographer fighting over who's getting the shot.
Yeah.
You never ever want that.
No, and it does happen. And it's like I would never convey that to my couple.
Yeah.
But there's definitely weddings where it's a little awkward.
Yeah. Let's hit on that for a second. That wasn't something I had written down, but what do you do in that scenario?
Yeah, I'm pretty collaborative, and I'm not the most assertive person. So, which I think can be good and bad, depending on the situation. Honestly, the issues I've run into the most are videographers who aren't as experienced in working around a photographer. In my experience working with really great experienced videographers, we usually don't have to do that much individual work with a couple. Most of it really should be able to be done simultaneously. And I just try to constantly be checking in with them. Like, hey, do you want to switch sides? Do you need to get closer? Ooh, can I get a wide shot? Really trying to be communicative. And that works really well. And if someone's not as experienced, I will walk them through like, hey, I'm going to be here. I think this is going to be a really good shot. Or like, hi, I just need this spot for this moment. I'm going to grab my shots. I'll back up and let you move in. I don't want to say I'm like coaching them through, but I just try to be really collaborative and helpful and lead with kindness. And it almost always
communication
works out well.
is key.
It is.
Always. In all aspects of life,
True.
But especially during someone's wedding day.
Yeah.
Like, you're not trying to be a hassle. Like, that's the last thing you want to do is add something, add stress.
Yep.
That's my whole philosophy with all of it, is to just be as least invasive as possible.
Yes.
And make it look to where you were like, you made this happen all day long, but be as least invasive as possible to get that result.
I always tell prospective clients, a big philosophy of mine when shooting weddings is, obviously my goal and purpose for being there is to capture beautiful imagery of your day, but I don't want your day to be about photos. I want to be capturing what's actually happening, the emotions that are actually happening. Yes, there are dedicated times we will take some photos and prompts I will lead you through, but at the end of the day, I want it to feel like you guys got to spend time together, enjoying your day with your favorite people, and I just got to capture it all.
Yeah. So you started off doing different types of photography as well. What led you to kind of narrow down to weddings? And do you have are you going to do those other types of photography going forward, or are you just kind of sticking with the wedding photography, which you crush, by the way?
Thanks. I love it. Weddings are definitely what I market the most. They're my primary source of income and my primary focus, but I definitely do still do other work. I don't do as many seniors as I used to, but I love seniors. That's what I started with. It feels so natural to me. I think with my background in doing like blog and fashion photography, posing like one person just comes so easily to me, and I think it's really fun. I understand angles. I love working with girls who love doing photos because I'm that girl. So it's fun. I do families as well. Honestly, it was never a passion of mine, but now that I'm a mom and I understand young children more and understand the meaning of being a parent, those sessions have a lot more meaning to me than they used to.
Yeah.
I used to just do them to make extra money, and now I genuinely love capturing special moments between parents and their children because as a mom, I dream of having photos like that. They're really important. So I definitely want to continue doing sessions like that. I've noticed, I don't know if it's my age or what, but I'm getting a lot more maternity sessions, and it's probably just my season of life and being a mom as well. And I'm really enjoying that too, because I have gone through that experience now, and I really understand how truly special it is and what a life milestone it is. But yeah, that was a really long answer to your question. But
That's good. That's why we're on a podcast.
yeah, I don't want to only do weddings. I crave variety in what I'm doing. I've always been a side hustle type of person because I need that diversity and different types of challenges.
Yeah. What is your least favorite thing about shooting weddings? And then what is your favorite thing about shooting weddings?
My least favorite part, I could go two ways with that. It stinks sometimes that they're on Saturdays they're not always on Saturdays. I have a lot of Friday weddings this year, which I love a Friday wedding, by the way. I think they're fun for everybody. It's like people get to take off of work. It's right at the beginning of the weekend. And then all your guests, all your wedding parties still have their whole weekend. So big Friday wedding gal. But I have FOMO a lot with weddings. You're gone like an entire day. So, and I do sometimes miss out on big family and friend life events. I had to miss my husband's grandmother's 100th birthday party last summer because I had a wedding. And it was fine. I see her all the time. But, things like that, it isn't as ideal. In terms of an actual wedding day, usually my least favorite part are the family photos. Everyone is stressed. No one is having fun.
I feel like that would be a universal photographer
I think so.
answer for that.
I think so. And then I get jealous when the videographer is like, all right, I'm going to go sit over here, have fun. I'm like, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why they just are not, I don't know. It's like, it feels very regimented. It's hard to make them feel organic. A lot of times people are snapping at each other. Yeah. It's not my favorite.
With the family photos, do you prefer to do those before the wedding? If they have a first look and stuff, you prefer to knock all that stuff out before the wedding?
Yeah.
And then after the wedding, it's just reception. We get to party and have fun and then do sunset photos and that sort of thing?
Yeah.
Or do you like doing it after the ceremony to have a little bit of a break?
I think my ideal, if they do a first look, would be to do family photos before. I don't know. It just gets it out of the way. And then, I don't know. I just think my couples enjoy either getting to slip out from their ceremony to go take some photos with just me and them and have a little time away from everyone, or like really getting to enjoy their cocktail hour or their reception or whatever and slip out later for golden hour photos. But I don't know. It's just kind of nice that everyone can just go straight to having fun.
Yeah. That's the way I always did it too. In your opinion, total opinion, what's your essentials for a wedding photographer? Like, what do you think the skills are that you have to have if you're going to go shoot people's weddings?
I think going back to what we mentioned a little bit ago, you have to be a good communicator. And you don't have to be super outgoing to be a good communicator. I am not an extrovert. I put my extrovert hat on during wedding days, but I'm more of like the calm photographer, I would say. That's how all of my clients describe me, like that I was a calming force. So yeah, I think really good communication. I think being able to read your couple and read family members, like paying attention to the vibe of the room. I'm sure you've been in this situation. Sometimes a mother of the bride is really, really stressing out a bride. Like sometimes they're not super close, or sometimes their personalities don't mesh super well.
All of the weddings I've ever shot, the mother of the bride is always the problem.
Yeah.
If you remove that issue, like that's always the thing.
Yeah.
Which sucks because they have the most in it, like they're most attached, the bride. And I understand too from the emotional aspect of like their daughter's getting married. It's their little girl. I understand that part, and they get freaked out because they want it to be such a great day for them, but they end up making it slightly worse on them.
Yeah.
Just because of that.
It's sad.
Yeah.
And the weddings where it's not like that, it's amazing. Those are the extra special weddings. I can still rattle off my couple's names off the top of my head because everything was just so good between parents and the couple. So yeah, being able to read those situations, and like sometimes I help facilitate creating space for a bride. If I can tell she's feeling overwhelmed.
That a couple times too, yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes I feel like you do a little bit of therapy, a little bit of counseling. I've wiped tears. I've touched up makeup. Yeah, I think great communication, reading the room, having empathy, And then being adaptable, I think, is maybe the biggest one.
Anything can happen on a wedding day.
Truly, weather, things get way off schedule sometimes. A limo didn't pick someone up. I've thrown a bride and groom in the back of my messy mom car before because their ride didn't show up on time. You just got to go with the flow and keep a smile on your face. Keep your demeanor calm. Sometimes I have a bride and groom who are worried about being off the timeline. I'm like, if I'm not worried, I don't want you to be worried. Let me deal with that. We're good.
Yeah.
And I've found that works really well.
Personal branding is something you're very, very good at.
Thank
and
you.
the common theme throughout your Instagram, all of the things throughout your actual shots themselves, the posing, all of the things. And then going back to your fashion blog stuff, like you brought up the posing stuff. I am always like drawing off you for inspiration for like posing stuff. That is, I think it's because I'm a dude. Posing is the hardest thing about photography for me. I have like a couple things, like a staples that I know work with every body type, all these things. And those are the things that I hit. What do you think, maybe for someone who's getting into photography, who that's their biggest struggle, or for me, who that's my biggest struggle, what are some tips of like how to, as least invasive as possible on people, pose them into natural poses, or like prompting? I know prompting is a big thing with weddings, of like giving them a thing to do, and then you capture that thing. It can be a little bit easier on the couple and you.
Yeah.
Any advice?
Yeah. Man, I could talk about that for a long time. I do really love it. I usually start off with movement. I feel like it helps everyone just kind of settle in a little bit. Everyone's a little nervous when you start doing photos, whether it's your wedding day or just a senior session, engagement session. I pretty much always start with some kind of walking prompt just to get people moving, loosen up. It gets me warmed up. So that's what I always start with. And there's so many variations you can do with that. I do a lot of walking prompts throughout my sessions and weddings. And there's just so many different angles and things you can do with that. And that's probably an oversimplified answer, but that's how I start pretty much every session. Rather than, here, let's set up this perfect static moment.
Say you're in a senior, you're on a one-on-one.
One-on-one,
Yeah.
senior.
Because weddings, they can get hairy. You can have a wedding party of 8 people on each side. It can get crazy with that. So like a one-on-one. I feel like that's the most common thing that people will be, as a photographer, you're going to be a one-on-one taking photos. So
Headshots, seniors, things like that.
Especially seniors.
Yeah. Okay. So I like to ask them, I'm like, what's your favorite way to smile? Like, are you a smiley, like giggly person? Do you like a soft smile? Are you more serious? Like, I'll just chat with them as we're like walking to where we're shooting. I'm like, do you have a side you prefer? And then, I make it light. I'm like, I strongly prefer my left side. So I got you.
Do you actually?
Yeah.
So I set up the cameras perfectly for
Yeah,
you.
I almost said something when I walked in. I was like, thank God it's on my left.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm that way, but I am. So I try to just do little things like that to make sure that they're comfortable with what I'm leading them in, and make sure that, I'm setting them up for success and for confidence. For seniors, I start with walking, like I said. And then, we do some static poses, but I do a lot of movement, even with a senior. Like, for girls, one of my favorite things to do, if they're wearing like a skirt or a dress, I'll have them sway back and forth, kind of flip their skirt around, look side to side, look at me, like turn your shoulder to me. It just gets them moving. And they often end up being some of my favorite photos because they just feel very candid and carefree. I'll have them turn away from me and then like throw their head and their arm over their shoulder and look at me just to get more movement. And then we'll go into like sitting poses and stuff like that. But I'm always like looking at people's lines, making sure they're elongated, looking for like triangles. I know is like a technical way to think about it, but someone's like having a leg bent up a little bit. So you have a triangle, creating a triangle with their arm. It just is visually appealing. I have girls play with their
Shape
hair a lot.
in general. Yeah.
Yeah, so it just doesn't feel really straight. Yeah.
Especially females. Like
Yes.
you want to introduce some S curves,
Yeah.
some of those things.
Yeah, make it feel soft, feminine, if that's their vibe. Yeah. Play with their hair a lot.
One thing I would like to do, and this just came in the top of my head, I think I've mentioned it to you before, but I would like to, at some point, go with you and do, this is the thing I want to do, like make a series of documenting other creators and their process. Like video you and how you're prompting and have a mic on you, and like that could
would
be
be
like
fun.
a cool thing.
Yeah.
And like the classes that we're going to have, I would absolutely love to have you come in and host a class
Yeah.
on posing
Yeah.
and like consistency and like making people comfortable. Like
Yeah. Have a couple people come model that can demonstrate. That'd
some
be really
people
fun.
that actually know what they're doing. So
Right.
it makes it easier on the whole class to see it.
Right.
And then the hardest thing is making people that are uncomfortable on camera feel comfortable, because
Yes.
being on camera is the most uncomfortable thing ever for everyone.
Yes.
Even if you're well versed in it, it can still feel awkward sometimes. So that's the first thing I always tell people is like, you just know this is the most awkward thing. I understand that. So we're just going to have some fun.
Yeah.
So setting that up front and like talking with the person as you're walking out, like you were saying, that's always like the most important things.
Yeah.
Just establishing like, we're friendly, like we're going to have some fun.
Yeah.
Like, let's just get rid of the awkwardness.
Exactly. Just make them feel at ease. I think almost every couple, as we're walking to where we're going to start shooting, they're like, we haven't really done photos much before. Like, we're really awkward in front of the camera. Or the guy's like, yeah, I'm not into pictures. I'm like, that's okay. I'm going to make you look great. We're just going to have fun. We're going to keep it moving. Don't stress.
By the end of a session, I always try to make them. Are you a fan of showing people some of the photos as you take them? I am too. Some people are totally against that. But I by the end of the session, those people that say they're not good at photos, I want to show them a photo and have them go like, that's awesome. That's me.
We
like,
look good. Yeah.
That's always my goal with those people is like, show them how awesome you can look. You just have to have the confidence in it.
Yep.
Let's talk gear.
Okay.
My favorite thing ever.
Yeah. You're a guy.
A lot of photographers like the photography gear sort of thing. So what do you use, and maybe start off with what you started with and what you're using now, and like your favorite camera body, lenses, all those stuff.
Yeah. I'm pretty minimal with gear. I don't have a ton. And honestly, the lens I had before my current one, never took it off my camera. I just upgraded lenses this year. It doesn't come off my camera either, but I started with a Canon 7D Mark II, I think. I don't even have that camera anymore.
That was a staple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a great starter. It does have a crop factor, which I didn't understand at the time, but yeah, I don't even know how to explain it now, but it crops your photos in.
Whatever the focal length of your lens is, it crops it in by 1.6 or 1.7 times that.
Okay.
So you take if it's 24 times 1.6, it would be equal to like a 35-ish lens.
Yeah. So I had the 7D, and then I bought the nifty 50 lens, the Canon 50 millimeter 1.8, which is a really good starter lens for portrait photos. It's under $200. It gives you nice bokeh in the background. It's small. It's not like heavy. So that's what I recommend to beginners. It is a good lens.
And it was on the crop, so it would be equal to almost an 80 lens.
Yeah.
Which 85 millimeter is my favorite portrait focal length.
See, we're very different in
Gives
that.
like it's enough compression to like smooth the background.
Yeah.
But it's like not too much to distort their face, you know, and flatten.
Yeah, see, we can talk about that with gear. We really do. We have different favorites, which is great. I love that. From there, I graduated to a Canon 5D Mark III and bought a 35 millimeter 1.4. It was a Sigma, and that served me well for a while. Sigmas are really sharp until they're not, I've found, and I wore it out, but it was good. It was what I could afford at the time, and I love a 35 millimeter focal length. It is just my sweet spot for some reason. From there, I upgraded to a Mark IV, and then the Canon 35 millimeter 1.4. And that's exclusively what I used for several years up until last summer. So like a lot of my work was that camera and only that lens. So I used to shoot entire weddings on a 35 millimeter. Didn't ever take it off my camera. And for the most part, I loved the look, but there were definitely moments where I felt hindered by that. So this past summer, I switched to mirrorless. You were a big encourager in me making that switch and that adjustment.
Unfortunately, you stayed with Canon, but we'll let it slide.
I'm a Canon girl. Yeah. That's all I know.
They make great cameras.
Yeah. They're second nature to me. So I have the R6, and then I bought the 28 to 70 2.0 lens, which is so heavy. My hand aches at the end of a wedding day, but it's so versatile. I love it. I would say mostly shoot with it on 35, but when couples are doing private vows or it's a ceremony, I don't feel like I have to be all up in their business. I can stand back and use that zoom feature. If I'm up really close to someone's face, I'll usually put it on 50 because I feel like then everything is so proportional. It's just, yeah, it was terrifying to spend that amount of money for a lens, but I love it so much. And I think
lenses are definitely a thing where you pay for what you get.
There's a huge return on investment for sure. And like looking at my work, it definitely took it to a new level, I think.
Yeah. Did you see any sort of a change in your workflow and style whenever you switched to mirrorless?
Yeah, my editing got easier. I think that's partially because I changed my editing a little bit last year. I started using different presets and I just took the time to learn Lightroom more and speed up my whole editing workflow. But overall, I just find the colors are easier to adjust and manipulate. And I think just shooting through the screen and seeing those photos in real time, what they're looking like, I'm way better about adjusting my lighting and even my white balance real time to where there's way less I'm having to do in post. And I think that comes with experience too.
Yeah.
Just knowing.
Yeah.
Because I've just found if you shoot a little too cool, it's hard to get that warmth back in a photo. So I tend to shoot a little underexposed and a little bit on the warmer side because I just think you get more detail that way.
See, with Sony, I shoot exactly the opposite.
Interesting.
It's easier to warm up Sony's photos than it is to cool them off.
Okay. Didn't know that.
Like a lot of Canon users, I know one specifically, shoot on the cloudy preset setting at all times. And then you can cool that off a little bit. Yeah. I shoot on daylight 99% of the time.
That's really cool.
Unless you're in a tungsten, really, really orange environment, then I'll cool it off even more. But I always err on the side of shooting a little too cool and warm up. Then
I learned something new today. Yeah, I would say Canon's the other way around. I used to shoot exclusively on shade white balance, but now I adjust my Kelvin throughout a wedding day. And it's made my editing so much easier.
Yeah. It's those little details like white balance is the easiest possible thing to change, and it makes some of the most difference of your photos. Because this is where I can get super technical, but the white balance affects the actual color that your camera sensor is seeing also. So if you're shooting with a real whacked up, like you go into a tungsten room, which is orange light, and you shoot with your camera on cloudy, which is boosting the oranges and all of that, there is no recovering all of that detail to what it naturally was with your eyes. Yeah. You just can't do it because your camera is literally seeing it as a different color.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying. The people are job showing me right now. We were talking about that specifically yesterday. Sierra, shout out to Sierra.
Hi, Sierra. She job shadowed me too recently.
So she's got a couple different perspectives now. Me, you, and Ellie she's been with. So she's got 3 other photographers, and you guys use Canon both. Ellie is the one I was talking about that shoots on the shade or cloudy preset, whichever one it is. Yeah. It's just Canon has that ability of cooling it off a little bit. But if it no matter what camera you're using, if you go too far off on your settings, you're not going to be able to recover it. Even with RAW, you can recover a lot with RAW.
Yeah,
but
even with a RAW image and using the dropper tool to find a true white, you still, if it's too far off, you can't ever quite get it.
Yeah. I kind of stressed that in my beginner photography class I did was like, white balance is the only other thing besides the exposure triangle that I would really, really, really like force someone to know.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to operate a camera and want to get an intentional photo out of it, rather than just snapping photos, which is fine if that's what you want to do. But if you want to go for a look at all and be intentional with your work, white balance, exposure triangle, those are the things.
I think that's great advice. And like I said, up until like last year when I got my mirrorless, I pretty much left it on shade all the time. And a lot of very successful photographers do that.
Yeah.
But finally diving in and getting a little more comfortable with adjusting that throughout the day, oh my gosh, it's made everything easier. My editing is so much faster and just more consistent. Because I think it is challenging, just again, bringing up weddings. You're in a lot of different lighting situations throughout the day.
And you're a natural light shooter.
I am.
We'll talk about that a little bit too.
Okay.
Challenges throughout the day of what you were just talking about with white balance and all of those things as a natural light shooter. Dive into that a little bit. Like, how do you work around those things? You walk into a room and you're like, oh, it's super dim and maybe the light that is there is not good light.
Yeah.
How do you navigate that?
I have a little internal anxiety attack. Less so now than I used to. It really is shocking how many getting ready rooms, especially bridal suites, are not set up with good lighting.
Yeah.
And even if they would just have a white wall, it would help so much.
That is my one gripe of every wedding venue I've ever been to. You spend all this money and build this incredible looking wedding venue and put crappy lights in it.
Yeah.
All the photos don't look near as good as they could. Like if you have a wedding venue, any of you have a wedding venue out there, good lighting, daylight balanced bulbs, of all things, will do wonders.
Oh, I shot the most gorgeous wedding this fall at a beautiful venue in the St. Louis area. Really such a beautiful venue. They did a really good job. But the tone of their light bulbs inside was straight up orange. And it made everything indoors so hard. And I'm like pretty good at balancing in my editing, but there's only so much you can do when you have natural light coming in from one way and then orange light all around you.
Because if you cool it off, then the natural light or the daylight looks blue.
Yeah.
So there's, unless you want to mask out windows and do that, like.
Yeah. And like, you don't have time to do that with a whole wedding album. At least I do not. So I've thought about emailing that venue and being like, yo, can we get you some different light bulbs?
I want to put out a service as like, if I ever see someone doing a wedding venue, like I will be your lighting consultant. I will give you the best looking light. That way people who don't know what they're doing can walk in and snap good photos.
And just, I know, maybe we should consult because there are some beautiful wedding venues. If they just adjusted the angle of the building a little bit, it would make shooting there so much easier. And I know a lot of it is lay of the land and all of that, but tiny little adjustments.
Or if you're building something from scratch, pay attention to the direction of the sun when you're building something, especially a wedding venue that you know is going to be there throughout the whole evening. And they always want sunset photos. But if sunset photos work hand in hand with your venue, everything can look so much better.
So much
And
better.
your venue can be in the back of all of the shots if you if you work it out that way.
True. Or you leave an open space where you can have golden hour sun behind the couple and just a beautiful green space. Yeah. It unfortunately doesn't happen that way sometimes. Or like your outdoor ceremony space has sun hitting them directly from the side. So one person's super shadowed and the other one is getting ducked with direct light. That's hard too.
Or their whole ceremony is just blasting front light at them because of the sun.
There's some really pretty venues with great views, but you are getting blasted with sun right in your lens the whole time. And it's so hard to shoot there. Yeah. We need to start consulting.
We're solving the world's problems right now. That's what we're doing.
truly making so many people's lives easier.
So to navigate those lighting situations, you're looking at bumping up your ISO, you're looking at white balance and all those things.
Yeah, really utilizing those settings, being comfortable with saying, even if someone's like waiting on a photo, saying like, give me just a second, I'm getting my lighting set up, play around really quick, try to get it right on your camera as you're shooting it. Sometimes you just got to snap a photo really quick, but yeah, adjusting in camera as much as you can has really, really helped me. Yeah. And then utilizing what natural light you do have and not being afraid to move people around. I'm trying to get better at that as a more passive person naturally. I'm like, oh yeah, just wherever you are is fine. I'm getting pickier. And ultimately, people are investing a lot of money to hire me to photograph their wedding.
For that expertise.
For that expertise and for the look that I advertise. So I'm like, if I need to move a bride a little bit and say, hey, like, let's get your dress mostly on, but those finishing touches that your mom's going to do, let's just come right over here in front of this window. Is it the most like organic thing? No. But if it's making their photo like a 10 instead of a 6, I think it's worth that.
I don't think any bride would be like, no.
No,
I want a worse photo.
Right. No, everyone's like, oh yeah, of course. I trust you.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, and you can make them feel really excited about that. Be like, oh my gosh, this spot is stunning. Yeah. And you show them a picture, they feel gorgeous.
Everything about asking things of people, or like to move and stuff, it's about how you make that ask too. Like, I feel like they hire you for your expertise. Yeah. So that's already kind of baked in. Like they will follow your lead, but you can't be like, stand over here. Like you don't want to approach it like that.
Yeah.
Show the excitement of this spot. Right? This is the spot. Like this is the 10 out of 10 spot. That's a 6 out of a 10 spot. You want 10 out of 10, right? Exactly.
2 things that I thought of when you said that. I obviously don't work with other wedding photographers really. But I've heard from videographers and from planners that some photographers are really, really bossy with their couples, with families, with wedding party. And yeah, there are times you have to be assertive. There are rowdy groomsmen who are being goofballs. And I have to say, guess what? The quicker we do this, the quicker you're done and you can go have a beer. Yep. But make it fun. Yeah. Laugh with them. But sometimes you have to straighten them up a little bit. But I just don't like leading with a bossy attitude. Ultimately, I'm serving them. And I think what you said, making them feel like, oh my gosh, I just took this insane photo. This light is gorgeous. I chit chat a lot while I'm shooting. I find it helps people feel relaxed and also helps them feel really confident. I'll be like, this is gorgeous. Your hair looks, whatever it is, your veil is blowing. It is poetic. It's amazing. Or like, look at this light and show them a picture. Yep. And they go, oh my gosh. Like we look
that's me.
So
like
good.
They get excited about the potential of more also.
Exactly. So yeah, if you do have to move someone for the light, as you're like setting them up and taking those first photos, just say something simple like, this light is insane. You guys look amazing. And I'm just constantly giving those affirmations while I'm shooting.
Yeah. That's good as like a general rule. Meeting people. I always compliment people. When you walked in, I was like, dude, your hair. Yeah. Like this new haircut on you.
That was so nice.
But that's, I didn't do that because we're having this conversation. I did that because I actually care and I actually think that.
Yeah.
But it's good to just be friendly with people whenever you meet people, whether you are shooting their wedding, whether you're meeting them for the first time, going for a job interview, those sort of things.
I think that's really
a
good
lot
life
of life
advice.
Skills can be transferred to business skills also. So
absolutely. I saw something last year. It was just a girl on TikTok. She was like, something I'm trying out is like, if I think something nice, I say it. If I'm passing a girl on the street and I love her outfit, be bold. Just say, I love your outfit. And it's like when people say things like that to me, it makes my entire day. And I'm naturally a more shy person, so I have to step outside of my comfort zone sometimes to compliment people, but no one's ever been mad at a compliment. Yeah. It's like, it feels so good to give
how
one.
How dare you tell me that I looked good today? Right.
It feels equally good to give a compliment as it does to receive one. So I think it's good life advice and good advice for photography and videography too. Yes. Make people feel like they're the most amazing looking people you've ever
You'd
seen.
be their personal hype man for the day.
Exactly.
So as a natural light shooter, are there any reasons or limiting factors as to why you don't shoot flash, or haven't tried it, or have you tried it and didn't like it? Can't wrap your mind around
Yeah.
it? Like that is a big barrier for a lot of people.
Yeah. I do use on-camera flash for receptions. And actually, I've been seeing it's kind of trendy right now to use on-camera flash for like getting ready photos in like a getting ready room, like a bridal suite. So I thought about trying that next time I'm in one where maybe I don't have any natural light,
Yeah.
making it an intentional vibe. But I do use on-camera flash for receptions. And I've actually gotten way more comfortable with that this last year. And I'm really leaning into it rather than, okay, here's my flash, here's the reception photos. What are cool things I can do with flash to make it super vibey and make it something I want to post on my Instagram feed rather than here's the reception part of their album, you know? In terms of,
Here's the good photos, and then here's the reception.
that's how I used to feel. And they were still good. I love a good dance floor photo, but yeah, I feel like that's something I've really leaned into last year is how can I make these photos with flash at nighttime cohesive with the rest of the album and just as cool as like the gorgeous portraits we just got to take at Golden Hour. And some of my favorite photos I took last year were like flash photos of couples, or like something I'm loving. I'm starting to do at every wedding is like I find once people are on the dance floor, I find a table where it's like you got the drinks and the half-eaten cake and someone's like purse or whatever. Take a cool like photo of that. I don't know. That's a very niche thing that I just have been really into. So I have learned to love flash pretty recently. Beyond that, like you're the king of lighting, it just really intimidates me. And I just like being a minimal girl, to be honest. I like just having my camera.
I shoot weddings are the most that I shoot natural light. I used to only be a natural light and it intimidated me. But whenever something intimidates me, I go straight for it.
Yeah.
And I'm just that personality type.
And I'm
to
an
where
avoider.
I have to learn everything about it if I don't know it.
Yeah.
So that's why I did what I did. So
That's cool.
you can just shape. Like you walk into that thing, you could just be like, okay, I'm going to put a light right here. I'm going to bounce it off of the white ceiling and it's going to feel ambient light that's perfect. Those are those scenarios where it's like really, really handy. And like you talk about the bridal suite thing, you could do that with your on-camera flash too. And like there's a white wall.
Yeah.
You know, just bounce
Off of that.
your light. And I know they make little bounce cards that can kind of go on the, just cover the mic, but they go right on the back of your flash.
Okay.
To where you can point it straight up and it bounces some of that light forward, but most of it's going straight up and filling the room with ambient light.
Interesting.
Look into that for the on-camera flash.
I do use a mag mod and I love it. I don't know. It's just what I've always used the same flash and a mag mod, and it's just kind of my flash look now.
Yeah.
But I do like that. It bounces the light off and it gives a really cool look.
Yeah. I saw one thing the other day. This is sort of that trendy photo sort of thing. You mentioned it a little bit there. What are your thoughts on trendy photos? And I'll tell you an example of one I saw the other day that was actually really, really cool. It was of a reception, and they had slowed their shutter speed down, so it's taking a photo for a longer amount of time. And then they increase their f-stop and all the things to compensate exposure-wise. And then they have a flash go off and zoom in real quick.
Oh.
So it creates like a warped feel.
That's
so
cool.
the flash goes off and it captures everyone as they are, and then the lights in the brighter part of the image it warps, and
blurred.
it's like the lights are like it's like going into hyperspace in Star Wars.
That's cool.
But in a dance photo, it was really cool. So that might be something to try too.
Yeah, I definitely, I've been seeing a lot of lower shutter speed dance floor photos. So you've got the movement of lights or whatever, and they're really cool. I haven't played with it a ton, but they're cool. I'm going to do that more this year, especially, there's weddings where you're on a dance floor alone for like 2 hours taking pictures. So you got to keep it interesting.
Yeah.
Trendy photos.
Yeah. What are your thoughts
on
on keeping up with trends? And is it something you think photographers should do? Or do you think it's something like if the couple specifically requests that, then you oblige them?
I like to have a balance. I want my photos to look current, but like I said earlier, it's also important to me that my photos look really timeless. And so I don't incorporate a ton of trends. I like getting some inspiration from them, but like, it's been kind of trendy to have the bride and then all the bridesmaids' flowers like circling her head.
Mm-hmm.
And I have done that a couple times, but it's been when a bride has requested it,
Mm-hmm.
because to me it's beautiful. Don't get me wrong. Gorgeous, but it's not like a naturally occurring thing.
Yeah.
It's not as organic as I usually shoot. So I incorporate some trends, like, for example, motion blur.
Mm-hmm.
When the first several years I was shooting, I worked my butt off for all of my photos to be sharp as a tack. So sharp, perfect focus. I used to shoot on 1.4 and I worked my butt off all day, making sure focus was directly on their eyes.
Yep.
So, but people love the motion blur and I've grown to love it too. And I don't use it as much as other photographers because ultimately I still want most of their photos to be in focus because I think that's going to stand the test of time.
Some of that, okay, the motion blur thing, I understand motion blur. The slightly out of focus,
Yeah.
I don't understand that at all. It just looks like you missed focus.
It's a
There's
vibe. It's an aesthetic.
I don't know. See, that's one of those things where I'm like, am I turning into the grumpy old man that's like, this is how it's done. Like, you got to take a sharp photo. Sometimes I think that's almost like an excuse for someone to be like, oh, this can be a new trend because I missed focus on this. Soft focus is one thing, but that's where it's still in focus, but it's slightly soft.
No, it's like that
Out of focus
intentional out of
is
focus.
a new thing.
Yeah, like sometimes I have couples run and I am intentionally waving my camera around, but it's an intentional thing. I think this applies to anything in life, fashion, photography. With trends, you have to take what speaks to you and leave what doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Not every trend is going to look good on everyone when it comes to clothing or shoes. Same with photography. Like an intentional, like grainy motion blur photo would feel really out of pocket for you, I think. But if it's my aesthetic, so yeah, I take a little bit of that.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to take some and leave some.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't go overly trendy, I wouldn't say. I do have some brides who say, okay, I saw like 2 photos that are really speaking to me. And usually I just try to lead them through posing and photos that I think fits them and fits their day. But if they specifically request a couple of inspiration photos, then I will oblige and make it my own. But yeah, I've been seeing that more and more.
Yeah.
I think Pinterest, Instagram, every girl's making a wedding mood board. And sometimes there's just a couple photos where it's like, I want that version for me.
So you oblige, but you're not going after the trends.
Yeah.
Have you ever had an equipment malfunction that severely hindered your shoot? And if you did, how did you recover from that?
I had a crazy wedding reception last summer. Like severe weather rolled in and the power went out at the venue. It was like pitch black. Everyone had their phone flashlights out. My flash also stopped working right at that time. Thankfully, I had a second shooter with me and they were about to they exited early because there was no power and they were just kind of like, all right, let's go.
Yeah.
We just swapped cameras really quick. So I got really lucky in that situation. My batteries just died. That's all it was. It worked fine the next time. I haven't had anything besides that, but I only carry my one camera around, but I always have a second camera and other lenses with me in my bag. And I shoot on 2 memory cards. I one time had a memory card go bad, but I had everything on a second card, so it was fine.
I've only ever shot with 1 memory card.
Oh my gosh.
Ever. And I've never had anything fail.
That's good.
Yeah.
Sessions, only 1 memory card, but weddings, dual slot.
Yeah, I'm just exiting the whole wedding world. So
Yeah.
one of the things I really like is investing in learning new things. Like I'm always searching YouTube for new things, new lighting experiments. How can I do something differently and learning professionally, but also personally, like developing learning as a human plus a professional. Do you do anything that is like specifically, intentionally, I'm going to sit down and learn, or I'm going to sit down and grow in this aspect and intentionally do that? Audio books, podcasts, that sort of stuff, or YouTube videos. You do anything like that?
Yeah, I'm weird. I'm not a YouTube person, but I'm in the minority on that. But I love podcasts. I love self-improvement. I don't read those type of books, but I like it in a podcast short form format. It's just easy for me to digest that way while I'm getting something else done. I'm a big self-reflection person, and I also love all of the Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, all that type of stuff. It has really helped me understand myself. I distinctly remember being in college. I was in a sorority with tons of other girls. Never understood why I just never ended up in the big popular girlfriend groups. I was like, what? What is wrong with me that people don't like? I learned through tools like that. That's just not me. I am someone who likes a tight circle of a couple close friends. That's what I attract. That's what is fulfilling to me. Just understanding things like that have helped me so much in life. Understanding I am never going to be amazing at networking and small talk if I don't know someone first.
Yeah.
If I get to know someone a little bit, I can dive all the way in. We can talk about whatever you want. I sat eating dinner with a wedding planner at a wedding last year, and we started talking about postpartum depression. I mean, I have no problem going deep. And you just have to realize, I think, what your unique strengths are and not be hard on yourself for things that aren't naturally coming to you.
Yeah. In the same vein, though, you can actually work on things that you want to improve, even if it doesn't come naturally to you. For example, me, I was the most shy person ever.
Interesting.
As a kid, I wouldn't talk to my own family members. I talked to my mom, and I had one cousin that I played with. No one else. I had to, I knew what the ideal version of me was, though, in my head. And I had to almost force myself out of my comfort zone into these areas. Kind of like I mentioned with the lighting, it was an area that intimidated me, so I went straight for it.
Yeah.
Last year, I've always been afraid of drowning. That's always been a irrational fear of mine. It's always just been a thing since I was a kid. So I'd never go underwater. Never had went underwater. I was afraid of it. I just wouldn't.
Yeah.
I forced myself last year to go underwater and get comfortable underwater. Now it's one of my favorite things to do is go swim and jump in the pool rather than being I can barely get in the pool, So introspection is the word that sums up what you were talking about of looking at yourself, figuring out who you are, who you want to be is probably the biggest part of that.
Yeah,
and then
definitely.
work towards that. That's a lot of what I've been thinking about lately. The past year of my life has been a lot of that. A lot of who am I?
Yeah.
Who am I going to be? Are people going to look back on me whenever everything's said and done and be like, what do I want those people to say about me?
Yeah.
And that's, I think, a cool thing to guide you through your life. Not be afraid of death happening at some point. It happens to everybody, but those deeper questions of who you are, what you do. It doesn't have to be that serious through your life though. You have a goal and work towards the goal.
Yeah. And I've always been a more shy person as well. So I really resonate with what you said. Honestly, photography has really helped me through that because I have to talk to people I don't know all the time. I've always hated talking on the phone. For some reason, it is terrifying to me. But now I talk to brides all the time. Brides that are thinking about booking with me or brides where I'm helping them with their timeline. And it's really helped me get more comfortable with that. Talking to people that I don't already know from all different places and backgrounds, I've learned a lot from that. And I've just gotten way more comfortable with that.
As we introspect, we get better as people. We're trying to grow a business as creatives though. And as creatives, we always want to be out doing the creative thing. We want to be out there doing the thing, having the fun, doing all that stuff. But if you're going to make a living doing this, you got to make some money. How do you balance the being the creative, wanting to do that with the business side of things? And how have you learned the business side of things?
I think it's one of the hardest parts, especially for creatives. We just have more of that side of the brain. Pricing yourself, I think, is maybe the hardest part of working on your own as a creative. I am constantly torn of like, should I be charging more to make this really worth my time and really be hitting my ideal clients versus feeling guilt of like, I know the economy is hard right now and people are having to stretch. So I'm constantly grappling with that. But I think, honestly, the most of what I've learned on the business side of things is through other friends in the industry. And I think having friends you can trust in the industry is maybe the best resource. We are constantly bouncing things off of each other, learning from each other. Hey, I tried this year and it made booking so much better. Like, I'm using this platform, or, okay, I think I'm going to raise my prices to this. Can you give me feedback? I don't know if that's the most helpful advice, but I think just knowing you don't have to do it alone.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people just are creative and they work only with themselves. And even if you are self-employed and a one-person business, you can still network and get so much out of your business from other people, because that side really does not come naturally to me, but I'm just constantly trying to learn from other people.
And something I talk about all the time is as a creative, and you're a photographer, so this other photographer technically is your competition. Am I going to talk about my pricing with my competition and get their advice on it? That's something I feel like and tell people all the time. We are all better together.
Yeah.
Like me and you talking and having these conversations. And we have a video series we work on together. We've had all these conversations, and
so we talk about this a lot. Yeah.
It's collaboration over competition.
Yep.
Like we are all better together. We can all rise up with the tide rather than you poking holes in someone else's ship so that yours can continue rising.
Yeah.
It's always the worst way to go. Like,
yeah, really, that's a huge core belief of mine. As I have my own business, I'm never speaking negatively about other eventers and photographers. If you believe in karma or not, it's just bad karma. And yeah, I do talk pricing with my photography friends, and we charge slightly different things, or some of us charge similar things. And ultimately, there's a client for everyone. Everyone's looking for slightly different things, or they're going to vibe with different people. And that's amazing. Ultimately, I want the clients that vibe so well with me where it feels like we're friends, or like, a lot of times I send off a wedding album and I say, please don't be a stranger. Like, I just love you guys, things like that. So I think that's the goal. And there is someone like that for everyone. I have never felt like I've lost out on an opportunity by building up my other friends in the industry. And we're all thriving. All of our businesses are, honestly. Ultimately, there's a lot of people who want photos. There's people with all different styles. And yeah, I've never allowed myself to feel too competitive in that sense, because it just isn't healthy for me.
There's a good competitiveness.
Yeah.
Being competitive is good.
It is.
But having a scarcity mindset of, if you get a job, you took that job from me. That's the fastest way to fail in a business.
Absolutely. I'm like, even if you're not blabbing that, it's going to come across. I think, you have to have an abundance mindset. There's something for everyone. And yeah, I used to be really bummed when I didn't get a certain wedding, especially in my earlier days, where it's like booking a wedding is a big, big deal.
Yeah.
And I've moved on from that. Honestly, dwelling on that doesn't help me at all. I'm just focusing on, okay, how can I best serve the clients I do have? What is some beautiful work I can share this week that might attract someone new?
Yeah.
And I love recommending other photographers and vendors to people. Like if I'm not available for their date, or if I think, I mean, there's been people where I'm like, I don't think I'm the best fit for what you're wanting, but I know someone who I think would be.
But that goes back to the introspection part of like, you got to know who you are and who you're going for to know that. And then you got to have those friends to be able to recommend. So like being that way is not going to get you ahead. Being in the abundance mindset and sharing and having more friends is only going to lead to more for everyone.
And
that's what we're trying to facilitate here with this building. The whole new business venture essentially is bringing people into literally the same building that can rub shoulders and bounce ideas off of, and everyone gets better.
Yeah.
That's our whole idea behind this thing.
Collaboration.
Exactly. What is your favorite part? You said your worst part about, or least favorite part about the business side was pricing.
Yeah.
I think that's everyone's least favorite part is like
hard.
putting a value, a price value to your value essentially.
Yeah.
What is your favorite part about the business side of things?
I'm very money motivated. I love seeing my growth each year. I love that part of things.
When you pull your bank account up and it's in the green multiple times,
That's nice.
rather than seeing red and red.
No, that is, I don't know if that's shallow or not, but it's very fulfilling to me. I'm money motivated at the end of the day. And honestly, just looking back and seeing how I've improved is really fulfilling too. I just did a big website rebrand a couple of months ago, and I've been putting it off for multiple years. I was dreading diving into my website. I think doing your own branding and writing about yourself and your work is really difficult. It's just easier to talk about other people.
Yeah.
But honestly, I ended up really enjoying the process and digging in and figuring out like, okay, these are my brand colors. Like I pulled them straight. I took screenshots of my Instagram feed and I pulled my branding colors straight from there. And it ended up being a really cool process. And my inquiries have shot way up since I redid my website because it really reflects who I am and my current work. So yeah, I think on the business side, I love that whole branding marketing piece.
You are crushing it.
Thank you.
You are always shooting. You have no real like dead times. It doesn't seem like. And from talking to you, like you're booked. Your time is severely limited. So there's going to be a time where it doesn't make sense to not go fully into that. Is that something you're weighing out those options and like?
Yeah.
Like obviously you're going to be more passionate about building your own brand than you are working a job. So that crossroads comes for a lot of people and they choose the safe route, but the safe route's not always the safest route and definitely the least fulfilling of the two.
Yeah.
What do you feel about taking chances on yourself?
I've had a lot of personal growth in that area. I am not a risk taker. And everything that you mentioned about where you're hitting that tipping point where you can't physically and mentally do more than what you're doing and figuring out what you're wanting to say yes to and what you're wanting to say no to. So I think reaching that point where you're like, I don't want to turn down clients. Like I want to book these 3 other weddings is a big factor. You just have to find your personal spot where there isn't more you can take on. But yeah, I tend to live in a mode of safety and security, knowing what I'm making every month, having health insurance. So it's something I'm really thinking about a lot. And now I'm a mom too. So I'm thinking about our future a lot. I love working hard. Since I was a teenager, I've had multiple jobs and it's just what I'm used to. And I enjoy that diversification, but I'm weighing heavily. Do I want to be the mom that was working constantly, or are there certain steps I can take that maybe aren't as safe, but set me up to have more time with my family and to be a more whole person, a healthier version of myself? So to answer your question, it's something I'm thinking about a lot. And if you had asked me that question 2 years ago, I would say, oh, I don't think I want to be self-employed. I like the security of everything being laid out for me and knowing exactly what money I'm making.
Yeah.
As I'm thinking about it more, I'm opening my mind up much more to taking a risk and betting on myself. I never thought I would be self-employed, but I'm thinking about it a lot.
You would crush it even more.
Yeah.
For me, it was the biggest factor was that I'm the sole income. We got 3 kids. We had just bought a house. And that's whenever I decided to be like, I'm going to quit my job.
Yeah.
For me, I was working only on the weekends, and I had surpassed my income by far doing it 2 days a week, essentially.
And at night.
Like if I had 5 more days a week, there's a limit of what you're making at this job. There's that glass ceiling.
Yeah.
You're limited by your motivation, essentially, with working for yourself. So if you have this mindset, I would always advocate for people, because there are definitely people who should not. Mm-hmm. And I think that is part of the being self-aware of who you are, who you aren't, who you want to be. That's going to be the common theme in this episode of like, if you aren't, some people should be a number 2 in a company and not the CEO, the person who's running everything. And the number 1 needs a number 2. Yeah. That's the current spot I'm at right now. I'm looking at scaling now a little bit. And if I had hair this past year, I would have pulled out all of it, because I just pushed myself so far for 9 months. I was on a treadmill that I couldn't get off of, and my feet are dragging, and like I'm just holding myself up.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like every single day. But I would take that any day over going back to a factory and having someone tell me, you have to be here at this time. You have to do all this stuff that's wrecking your body.
Yeah.
I would take it any day of the week, the treadmill that I can't get off of.
Yeah.
Over,
I'm on
over
it
that.
too.
Yeah.
I think even if you're not a numbers person, eventually you have to look at the numbers. Like you said, your weekend side hustle surpassed what you were making in your 40+ hour a week job. Then you just have to look at the numbers and see what makes sense. And I think, making yourself do that, even if you're not a numbers person, can be really valuable. I'm a gut feelings person, but looking at numbers and how my business has grown has opened my mind a lot more to what could be in the future, and that I do have options.
And your overall happiness and mental health and all of those things are a factor also, not just numbers.
Factor.
I mean, numbers,
True.
you have to make a living. That is the baseline. Once that is met, everything above that is icing on the cake.
Yeah.
But
like,
the icing on the cake is mental health being easier. Like your daughter, if you want to have more kids, opening up to that, and like, you're going to be there more.
Yeah.
Like, I drop my kids off to school every single day.
Yeah.
Because I never got the chance to. So now I make that a point. I will drop you off every single day, and then I'll get my day started.
Yeah. And I know, like, when we're scheduling things, you're always working around that. And that's great. But that's dedicated time that you have with them, and they can digest their day in the car with you, and you can have those conversations with them. Yeah, I think mental health and your personal happiness is a huge component. And I said earlier, I'm really money motivated, and those numbers do talk to me. But at the end of the day, we only have one life, and it's pretty short in the grand scheme of things. And you have to be happy.
Yep.
You do. And a healthy version of yourself.
Do you have any role models or mentors that have influenced you in your career choice, whether the business side or your business side?
I do. I talk about her all the time. My best friend is Jacy Overstreet. She has a huge following on TikTok and Instagram. So hopefully people have seen her on their TikTok feeds. We've been best friends since we were really nerdy, like 17-year-olds, but she is incredibly business-minded, and not scared of trying something new and potentially failing. I'm like, all of these big steps that I've taken to set up my own businesses are because she helped push me to do those. So I owe so much to her.
Yeah.
And I learned photography through her too. Like, I shoot so much like how she did because I was second shooting for her. So I owe a lot to her in life. And she's a huge mentor to me because she is really business minded. And so some of those deficits that I have, I can, get that feedback from her. And that's been so helpful. And I know once she's out of her like young mom of young children stage of life, she wants to get into consulting for like creatives and entrepreneurs. And I'm going to push her to do that. Like she's pushed me to do other things.
You're a living testimony of that. So
exactly. And yeah, we need those mix of people, but yeah, I'm super thankful.
So to kind of wrap this up, we've been going on over an hour here. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I appreciate you coming on and being here. Looking forward, I know we just kind of touched on looking forward a little bit, but what are some goals you might have for your business? We're just a month into 2024, maybe by 2025 or even beyond that. What are some goals you have for yourself and the business, and do you have steps to achieve those?
Yeah. Last year, my goal was to book 20 to 25 weddings for 2024. I currently have 24. So I'm at the top end of that goal, which has been really exciting. So I would love to book one more, but that was kind of my number I landed on, where I could make the amount of money I wanted to make, but not be working every single weekend, still having a little bit of balance, if that's a thing. So that's been a huge goal of mine. And I really leaned into posting wedding imagery and taking better wedding photos. I invested in a new camera and lens, like we talked about, and just making sure I'm not recreating the same posing for everyone, like really forcing myself to try new things. And I think that's really paid off. And building vendor relationships, like we talked about too, has really helped me hit that next tier of weddings, like venues I want to be at, weddings with planners and videographers, like a little bit higher budget tier of weddings. Another goal of mine, I want to get to that point where being full-time with photography is a viable possibility. I don't know if I will choose that as of right now, but that's a huge goal that's on my mind all the time. I want to give myself that option. And like you said, I'm the breadwinner for our family. So I do put a lot of pressure on myself to provide stability and, give us the life that we want to live. Yeah. So I have that in the back of my head every day as I'm pushing forward and getting better and booking more and more clients than I ever have before. I want to give myself that option.
So you're just constant improvement, professionally, personally.
Yeah.
And you are taking the steps and monitoring, and that's nuts, by the way, that you've booked 24 weddings.
It's a lot
in this year.
Yeah.
And you filled it up. Like everything that you wanted. That right there is testimony enough to where you could jump off right now.
Yeah. We'll see.
I mean, like as a outsider looking in, like a business-minded outside, you already crush it with more time and more energy to put into it. Yeah. You're going to crush it even more. And if your goal is 25 weddings and you book 24 of them by the first month, there is nothing stopping you except for your time.
Yeah.
So as a friend, as a fellow colleague, as someone who respects you and what you do and know the effort, and I appreciate you, and you are one of the influences on me also of pushing for different things. And I talked about it earlier about like your posing and different stuff. Those are the areas that I struggle in, and seeing you just kill it all the time and being able to work alongside you, it's been awesome. And I appreciate you and everything you do and your effort. I'm a big proponent of people's effort.
Yeah. And
the effort that you put into your passions and your family and all of the things, and trying to make that some sort of balance. I appreciate that as a dad, as a business owner, a creative photographer, all of the things. We're all just out here trying to make stuff work.
Yeah.
And that's all it is at the end of the day. We're trying to be successful and make things work and provide stuff for our family. And so I appreciate you and all the stuff you do. I hope that effort comes across to the community here, and like all of I'm sure it comes across to all of the people you work with in your business, Otherwise, you wouldn't have all of those spots booked. So I appreciate that. So thank you for being awesome. Thank you for being willing to come here and share your story and share some tidbits of information with everybody. And hopefully here in another year, maybe we'll have another podcast and see how things have changed for you. And who knows where you'll be at that point.
You never know. That's the good thing about working for yourself is there's no cap. So we'll see.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
See ya.